Why did Kabuto try to kill Sasuke during the Chunin Exams? This is a scene many people don't even remember because it's kinda quick, but between the preliminaries and the final round of the Chunin Exams, Kabuto almost kills Sasuke. If it wasn't for Kakashi showing up and saving Sasuke, he would be dead. And why would he do that? Because obviously he knew Sasuke was the prime vessel for Orochimaru at that point. He knew Orochimaru craved Sasuke's body, and we know Kabuto was a very loyal servant to Orochimaru, so why would he so clearly betray him at that point of the story? Was that a retcon or a plot hole? Well, you can kinda make a case for a retcon here, because in the Search for Tsunade arc, Kabuto comes across as much more of a prick than he was in the Chunin Exams. He was literally bullying Naruto for no reason other than Naruto being a naive kid, and he was never really like that in the Chunin Exams. Sure, he was arrogant, he's always been like that, but he was never really petty like he was when he was fighting Naruto and even Tsunade. But the reason why Kishimoto made him so much more of a prick in the Search for Tsunade arc was to make Naruto's eventual landing of the Rasengan much more cathartic, and we hated Kabuto. Oh, he's so annoying, so when Naruto finally lands the Rasengan, we are very happy. But there are interesting in-universe explanations as to why Kabuto would go and betray Orochimaru here in the Chunin Exams. Now, the first thing people are probably going to point out is that Kabuto may have been under the influence of Sasori. After all, Sasori used his sleeper jutsu on Kabuto so that Kabuto would spy on Orochimaru for Sasori, but actually, that wasn't exactly how those things worked. In the Tenchi Bridge arc, Kabuto and Orochimaru say that, oh yeah, Sasori's jutsu was dealt with, I'm no longer under his influence. Obviously, they don't tell Yamato and the others when Kabuto was released from the jutsu, so maybe you could still say that, yeah, Kabuto was under the jutsu during the Chunin Exams, but actually no. If you read the Kabuto flashback in the work, you're gonna see that Kabuto has always been Orochimaru's spy. Orochimaru orders Kabuto to spy on the Akatsuki, and that's when he comes into contact with Sasori that probably puts the sleeper jutsu on him at that point, but Orochimaru would already anticipate that because he knew Sasori, and he knew his powers. He used to be Sasori's duo in the Akatsuki. So that was by design. Kabuto has always been Orochimaru's spy. He was never Sasori's spy. Even when he was under the sleeper jutsu, Orochimaru knew he should be careful about it. He wouldn't let Kabuto being controlled by Sasori hang around his hideouts and things like that for too much. And he obviously wouldn't let a Kabuto that was being controlled by a hostile Akatsuki member when it's very important for Kabuto to be completely loyal to Orochimaru during the Chunin Exams when they're going to raid and try to destroy the Leaf Village. Because yeah, if Sasori could potentially weaken Orochimaru by taking away his prime candidate for a corpse, he would certainly do so. But no, this couldn't have happened because Orochimaru simply wouldn't allow it. Everything Kabuto was doing there was on his own volition. So to understand Kabuto's psychology going in when he tries to kill Sasuke, we have to take a look at the scene that happens a little bit before that, when we first find out Kabuto is a spy for Orochimaru and they're working together. Because before that, we thought Kabuto was a good guy that was helping Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura out during the Forest of Death, giving them information even before that, during the written test. And he seemed a pretty chill dude. But then no, we have this ominous page where there are two shadows, one kneeling to the other, and in the next page we find out it's Kabuto kneeling to Orochimaru. And the conversation they have here is very different from what you would expect from an Orochimaru-Kabuto conversation. Because in more than one occasion, Kabuto feels very defiant, and Orochimaru seems okay with it. In later arcs, for example when Orochimaru is agonizing because of the Reaper Death Seal on his arms, Kabuto is being a little smug to Orochimaru, and Orochimaru just looks at him and says, "Don't patronize me," and he gives Kabuto almost like a death stare, and Kabuto wasn't being nearly as challenging to Orochimaru as in this scene right here, which is strange because it's almost as though Orochimaru encourages Kabuto to challenge him in the scene. So Kabuto tells Orochimaru the preliminaries are over, and then Orochimaru remarks that the Land of Fire has not been preparing very well for the wars to come, unlike the other nations who have been building their militaries. And so Kabuto gets this realization. He turns to Orochimaru and asks, "So if we strike now?" Meaning that Kabuto didn't know at this point that Orochimaru planned to strike the Leaf Village. Because if you don't remember, Kabuto's primary mission in the Chunin Exams was to spy on Sasuke and determine his abilities. For Orochimaru, obviously. Kabuto's situation is pretty complicated here when it comes to his loyalties, because at first glance, he is a genin of the Leaf Village, a pretty unsuccessful genin that tried several times to pass the Chunin Exams and failed. At second glance, he's a member of the Root Anbu, who is a genin under Danzo's orders and spies on the village for Danzo, but on third glance, and finally, he is a spy for Orochimaru. But the thing is, it is established in the scene that even though Orochimaru acknowledges Kabuto as his right-hand man, he doesn't fully trust him. He did not tell Kabuto about Dosukin and Zaku, of them going into the Chunin Exams, and about their abilities. So much so that Kabuto provokes them in the beginning of the Chunin Exams in the written test, and Dosu attacks Kabuto, actually dealing some damage with his sound attack. Kabuto tells Orochimaru he wanted to provoke them because he realized, oh, they're sound ninjas. That's from Orochimaru's village, but that's strange. He didn't tell me anything about it, so he wanted to find out what they were about. And Kabuto is kind of resentful of that. He's like, oh, you didn't tell me about them. But then Orochimaru says, oh, those guys, they are completely worthless. They mean nothing. I didn't even tell you because it didn't matter at all. But obviously it's because Orochimaru is playing his cards very close to his chest. And something else he didn't tell Kabuto? Well, he planned to attack the Leaf Village and try to destroy it. After Kabuto asks that, oh, so we strike now? Orochimaru confirms it and says, well, yes. But then he says, well, I doubt it'll be fun to kill that feeble old geezer, referring to the third Hokage, Hiruzen. And that's when Kabuto's first big challenge to Orochimaru comes. He says, are you so sure of yourself? Claiming that, well, maybe Orochimaru doesn't have what it takes. And he even says that with a classic Kabuto smirk, which kinda pisses Orochimaru off. And then Kabuto finishes by saying, to me, it seems like you're faltering. Now, we don't know exactly what Orochimaru would be faltering for here. Maybe he didn't think he was powerful enough to kill Hiruzen, or maybe he still held sentiment to Hiruzen and also to the Leaf Village. This is implied to be the case in the beginning of the Orochimaru versus Hiruzen fight, when Orochimaru starts to cry, realizing what's about to happen, and then he stabs himself to essentially snap out of that sentimental state. And then he kind of says, oh, I was so bored I was yawning, that's why there were tears in my eyes. But that's obviously cope, right? And the thing is, as Kabuto is challenging Orochimaru like that, Orochimaru remains silent, just listening to him, as Kabuto pretty much monologues. He keeps on saying that the powers of each hidden village will collide and enter a fierce, lengthy conflict, and the Sound Village will be involved. And that Orochimaru himself wants to be the one to trigger that conflict through, well, the invasion and destruction of the Leaf Village. Because had Orochimaru succeeded in his plan to destroy the Leaf, everything in the shinobi world would be launched into chaos. Other nations would try to take advantage of the weakness of the Land of Fire and the Leaf Village if it was completely destroyed, and a fourth great ninja war would probably ignite. That was exactly what Orochimaru wanted to do, to see things change, to move the world forward, and also develop new jutsus along the way. That was his life's objective. And then Kabuto continues saying that to the end of starting this war, this major conflict, Sasuke is the key. He is the bullet that's going to start it. And Orochimaru confirms that, saying his insights are truly disgustingly accurate. And that's when Orochimaru says something counterintuitive. He says, I'm entrusting Sasuke to you. Why wouldn't Orochimaru himself want to take care of Sasuke? Because I would assume he would try to keep his vessel as protected as possible. No, he gives the job to Kabuto. Now, maybe that's so that Kabuto will regain trust in Orochimaru after he lost trust when Orochimaru didn't tell Kabuto about a few of his plans. And he orders Kabuto to kidnap Sasuke, who is at the hospital in the moment. And the reason why he needs Sasuke captured is to make sure the darkness in his soul will not be completely extinguished, because after Sasuke got into contact with Naruto and they became friends, Sasuke's life goals began to change, and that's a big conflict within Sasuke later on in the story. His desire to make bonds and friendships, but also his need for revenge and his life's goal. One affected the other, he couldn't have both. And Orochimaru confirmed Sasuke was changing because he was fearless when he faced Orochimaru himself in the Forest of Death, not afraid of dying, even though he cannot die to get revenge on Itachi. And that's why Orochimaru says he needs to separate Sasuke and Naruto immediately. But that's when things get even more interesting, because Orochimaru says something extremely creepy. He says, "As soon as I can, I've got to stain him with my colors." That being Sasuke, and then Orochimaru licks his lips with his tongue. And then we get this reaction from Kabuto. He looks disturbed after that line. Look at his face there. Kabuto looks absolutely uncomfortable, and he seems to completely disagree with what Orochimaru is saying there. Almost as though he doesn't want Sasuke to go through those things. That doesn't really look like the guy that was bullying Naruto only a couple of arcs later. And as Kabuto is leaving to take care of the assignment, Orochimaru looks at him with those creepy eyes and says, "If you want to stop me, your only chance is to kill Sasuke. There's no way you can kill me. Even if you're strong, you're no stronger than Kakashi." So Orochimaru acknowledges, passive-aggressively might I add, that Kabuto is doubting Orochimaru in one way, shape, or form. Orochimaru says, "Oh, I'm joking, bro, it's just a prank." But obviously he meant that. But then Orochimaru just smiles and says, "Now you may go, I'm putting my trust in you." And Kabuto goes away after he looks one last time at Orochimaru with a very strange expression. And it's such a strange expression because he is smiling but also clearly nervous, meaning that he is probably thinking about killing Sasuke here. Or could he be thinking something else? We just don't know exactly what's going on because we never get Kabuto's thoughts. And almost as if Orochimaru is taking the place of the audience, we get his thoughts, and he thinks, "Heh, that face, I wonder what he's thinking," just like we are. So Kabuto goes to the hospital, and he absolutely bodies the Ambu squadron that was watching over Sasuke, because Sasuke is unconscious, in bed, he can't do much. He's completely at Kabuto's mercy, and Kabuto has a strange moment of humanity towards Sasuke. Because after he kills the Ambu, he starts monologuing to an unconscious Sasuke, but almost as if he is talking to him and to Kabuto himself at the same time. He sighs as if he's not enjoying what he's doing whatsoever, as if he doesn't want to do that. And then Kabuto says, "An excess of brilliance can be a disadvantage. We stood out too much. I wonder if catching Lord Orochimaru's eye will mean ruin for both of us." So it's very clear that Kabuto is questioning his actions here. Is it right for him to be alongside Orochimaru? Is it right for Orochimaru to get this very young child's body? And is it right for Orochimaru to start a massive world war after he acquires Sasuke's body? Because that's the thing too. People don't remember this, but Orochimaru at this point of the story had access to the Edo Tensei Jutsu. And Sasuke was supposed to be his perfect vessel, his body that would never decay, and so Orochimaru would never have to change it again, and he would have access to the Sharingan and the Uchiha Kekkei Genkai in general. Imagine the type of damage an Orochimaru like that could do. It would be essentially like Kabuto in the Wark when he could bring back an army of Edo Tenseis, an extremely powerful Edo Tenseis at that. And on top of that, he would have a much more powerful body that he could hone to perfection, because it simply wouldn't decay. So this is a rare, candid moment of Kabuto just speaking his mind. Sure, nobody's around to listen to him. Well, maybe Kakashi was around and he simply didn't know yet because Kakashi arrives shortly after this. But Kabuto thinks he's alone, and he thinks Sasuke, this kid he's about to kill, is the best person to confide this with. Kabuto even thinks he's so young, how could he have this demon dwelling in his heart? It will serve his purpose nicely, and when he says that, he's referring to Orochimaru, and then Kabuto keeps going, thinking that, well, when Orochimaru uses that technique into this kid, it's gonna be over. Meaning the body transferring jutsu that Orochimaru planned to do on Sasuke. And eventually he does, but Sasuke counters that in Shippuden. But the thing is, Kabuto is very doubtful here, and he thinks if Orochimaru gets those things, it's gonna be terrible. He doesn't want to go through with it. And then we even cut to Orochimaru, and he's thinking, well, Kabuto, perhaps you really will kill Sasuke. And then he cuts back to Kabuto, and he's holding a scalpel to Sasuke's neck, about to cut it. That's when Kakashi arrives, and Kabuto tosses the scalpel at Kakashi between his arm and his torso, and Kakashi catches it. Naturally, Kakashi starts to interrogate Kabuto. What do you want to do with Sasuke? If you don't tell me, terrible things will happen to you. And Kabuto doesn't really answer the question. He just says, oh, do you think you can? Kabuto's just absolutely cryptic with Kakashi. He gives him no information whatsoever, and he even threatens to kill Sasuke to put Kakashi in a worse position. Kakashi attacks, but Kabuto escapes, using the corpse substitution jutsu, essentially. But that's the thing. If Kakashi hadn't arrived there, Sasuke would be dead, killed by Kabuto. Why would he have that moment of hesitation, that weird moment of humanity that doesn't seem very much in character? Well, for that, we have to take a look at Kabuto's flashback once more. Because when Kabuto was a kid and taken in by the orphanage after he essentially got lost and lost all his memories, he was a good kid that wanted to help. He really loved his quote-unquote mom. And naturally, the problem with Kabuto there was that he didn't know exactly who he was, and he wanted to find out because he lost all his memories and he felt like he had no purpose in life. So getting that new family of his was a big thing. And obviously when his quote-unquote mom gives the glasses to Kabuto, he feels very honored and loved. So much so that he pretty much sacrifices himself, going with Danzo and Orochimaru, saying that he will spy for them if they keep on funding the orphanage, because Danzo was threatening to cut the funds of the orphanage if Kabuto's mom didn't go back to the root Anbu and start to spy for them again. And Kabuto was like, no, please don't do that, I'll go. Obviously they were both taken, and that's when Kabuto's story starts to take a turn, because he becomes a spy, and he was already a medic ninja before that. Well, not a ninja, but he knew medic ninjutsu. So he becomes this spy that knows medical ninjutsu, and this is the perfect recipe for Kabuto to grow detached of pretty much everything. When you're a spy, you can't get attached to the people you know. He spied on every single major village. He knew several ninjas, obviously. He probably made quote-unquote friends along the way. Friends that he just pretended were real, but in the meantime, he was just spying on them. And by being a medic ninja, he also saw a lot of people dying. And he probably also saw a lot of people dying that he tried to save and couldn't really do anything about it, which will eventually desensitize you to death. But he did all that with the hope that the orphanage would be well, and that eventually he would be able to go back and live with his mom. But then naturally Danzo arranges for his mom to attack Kabuto and brainwashes her into believing Kabuto looks like someone else by giving her fake pictures of a fake grown-up Kabuto. A slow brainwash, and it's even revealed that this was the plan from the beginning. They were both supposed to kill each other in a mutual strike because as spies, they knew too much. And then after Kabuto kills his mom, defending himself, not even knowing that it was her attacking him, he completely loses his sense of self. Orochimaru takes him in, and then he reveals the truth about Danzo and the root. Kabuto attacks Orochimaru and quote-unquote kills him, but Orochimaru substitutes. And that's when Orochimaru offers Kabuto a new meaning, a new purpose in life, to find who he is, and that they shall do it together. But what does that have to do with Kabuto killing Sasuke? Well, when Orochimaru reveals that he plans to attack the village, Kabuto didn't know that, but he doesn't seem all that surprised. He even deduces that acquiring Sasuke will be the catalyst for this major war. But then, when Orochimaru tells him that Sasuke shall be tainted with Orochimaru's colors, that triggers something within Kabuto, and that's probably Kabuto getting back in touch with his own humanity, because through Sasuke he could see his own situation in a way. A very talented kid that Orochimaru would use for his own gain, for his own goals, and at the end of the day, Kabuto and Sasuke therefore would not benefit at all from it. Because at this point of the story, Kabuto hadn't yet realized who he was. He only does that in the end of the war arc, and it's not through Orochimaru, it's through Itachi actually. So when he is about to kill Sasuke, he probably sees himself in Sasuke and thinks that things could have been reversed here. And yet, Kabuto still has to kill Sasuke to stop Orochimaru's rampage, to make sure another kid like himself wouldn't be put in the same situation. Because yeah, obviously Kabuto knew that Orochimaru was running a billion experiments in his labs, and Kabuto himself was even helping him out a lot with those, but when he sees Sasuke and sees himself in that situation, that's when his humanity comes back in, and he's like, oh my god, this is terrible, I have to stop it. And you can see in the arc, when he's fighting Itachi and Sasuke, that Kabuto still has feelings and emotions inside of him. They weren't completely extinguished. So much so that even before he gets Izanami'd by Itachi, he's crying remembering his past. And maybe he's even doing this to protect the orphanage. Maybe it's not even something conscious, but killing Sasuke here will prevent a major war. Orochimaru won't be able to use his powers to destroy the Leaf Village and other villages and create this major conflict between nations that are weakened. And we know that everyone suffers when there's a major war in the Naruto world and in the real world, so the orphanage would suffer as well, and Kabuto knew firsthand how much the orphanage suffered in the last war when he had to volunteer himself to be a spy. So he wishes to stop that and make sure the orphanage will be fine, even if it's not something conscious. Now, I've seen other interpretations that Kabuto was jealous of Sasuke, that Kabuto wanted to be Orochimaru's vessel, but this is not nearly as compelling of an explanation. Can even see later in Naruto Shippuden that when Sasuke joins Orochimaru, Kabuto looks fine. He's kind of happy Sasuke is there because now Orochimaru is going to have a good body to take. And then people may say, well, Kabuto was obviously jealous because later on we can see he's completely loyal to Orochimaru. He doesn't even question him. So much so that after Orochimaru dies, Kabuto tries to become him. But the thing is, the character shift between the Chunin Exams and the Search for Tsunade arc can be explained. Because it's almost as if when Kabuto enacts the plan to destroy the Leaf Village alongside Orochimaru, it's Kabuto buying Orochimaru 100%, going all in with Orochimaru. It was as if when he was going to kill Sasuke, he was trying to find a way out, even if subconsciously. He was doing that one final thing that may be able to pull him out of there. And that was the only time he could do it. That was the only time he would be able to get in touch with his humanity enough because he sees himself with Sasuke. And so killing Sasuke is this desperate act trying to free himself from the clutches of Orochimaru. Because if you look at that interaction they have, Orochimaru is not being forceful with Kabuto. He is kinda challenging Kabuto to go ahead and kill Sasuke, almost as if that would have been a rite of passage for Kabuto. And that's ironically a very Orochimaru-like thing to do. He wants to see things moving, he wants to see change, however it may look. Because yeah, if Kabuto killed Sasuke there, that's a big blow to Orochimaru's plan. Obviously, he had fail-safes and other alternatives of bodies that he could use, just like he uses in the original, because he never actually gets Sasuke's body anyway. But it was not in Orochimaru's best interest for Kabuto to go ahead and kill him, but Orochimaru was like, yeah, no, I mean, if he does it, that's gonna be very interesting and I wanna see that. But at the end, it doesn't happen because Kakashi stops Kabuto, and then Kabuto goes along with the plan to destroy the Leaf Village, and goes all in on Orochimaru. So much so that in the Tenchi Bridge arc, when Yamato's like, oh, so now Orochimaru is using a jutsu to control you, not Sasori, Kabuto's like, no, he's not using anything to control me, I'm just loyal to him because we have very similar philosophies. But that's not really the case, is it? Orochimaru wants to see change, he wants to learn everything, he craves knowledge, and also information. Kabuto? He may say he wants all those things, but what he truly wants is to find himself. Now, he probably thinks that helping Orochimaru with that quest to see change, to learn every single jutsu on Earth, will help Kabuto finding himself, but obviously we see in the end of Kabuto's arc that no, that wasn't how Kabuto should have been going about that. And oddly enough, maybe Kabuto would have found that out had he killed Sasuke in the Chunin Exams much earlier. Can you imagine if Kabuto had slashed Sasuke's neck there? He'd be like, oh my god, what have I done? This kid is literally me. and now he's dead because of what I did. It's exactly what I'm doing to myself while I'm serving Orochimaru. It's as if I am putting a knife to my own neck. But after the Konoha Crush arc, that spark of humanity goes away for a long time, until Kabuto finds it back in Naruto Shippuden. Watch this other video right here for more cool Naruto content. Definitely subscribe, ring notifications, and like this video. Make sure you ring the bell, right? It helps me a lot, and it also helps you. Comment down below why you think Kabuto tried to kill Sasuke, and thank you so much for watching.